Welcome back, everybody. So today I'm gonna try and show you how to connect your Meshtastic nodes to a Home Assistant. Now, I'm not a Home Assistant expert. I can tell you Home Assistant can do many great things, but it is pretty neat to be able to connect your Meshtastic nodes to it. You know, when I installed Home Assistant for the first time, it said, "Oh, look, your printer's ink is at 80%. I didn't even know my printer told everybody about its ink level, but it can do so many things inside, you know, that it finds on your network and can report on those. You can also connect up your Meshtastic nodes to it. And here's a little dashboard that I built. And again, this can be customized so many ways. I mean, it's just insane. But in any case, I have nodes reporting. I have 3 nodes reporting on this dashboard. I have many more nodes, but I've only got these 3 reporting at the moment. That's my hat, my Linux hat over there. And there I'm getting air utility and channel utilization and, that kind of thing, utilization stuff. My solar node, you know, I have a utilization, but then I got the temperature because I got a BME 280 inside that enclosure. I also, you know, what's my power level at, and, you know, how many volts and humidity. And then, you know, I have a home-based node, which also reporting to here, you know, same thing, temperature, humidity, and gas resistance. I drew a few graphs. I added just a graph here. This graph down the bottom sort of shows the humidity from my home node. So it can graph things like that, very neat. And then this graph under the hat shows, I think it shows currently the air utilization. So, you know, so you can do crazy things. I mean, you can even include Grafana in here, which allows you to create unbelievable, views, you know, things with different graphs. It's just crazy what you can do with this. But, you know, I'm not a Meshtastic, a Home Assistant expert, so I'm going to sort of just tell you how to do it, but know that you can do a lot more than my little basic stuff I got on here. But the point is getting the data to Home Assistant from Meshtastic, and then be able to take it from there inside Home Assistant. Here I'm using the website, but they have native apps and they have mobile apps, and there's just so much to Home Assistant, you know, beyond Meshtastic and what you can do with the data. But I'm just going to show you how I set this up. So, you know, let's start there. Okay, so the first step is where you're going to run Home Assistant. So, Home Assistant can be hosted on many things, and, you know, but I chose to just run it on a little Raspberry Pi. So here I've got in a self-printed case, I've got a Raspberry Pi 5, and I'll leave a link in the description for it. I think you can run it on a 3 or a 4, or, you know, obviously on a 5. It runs really nice on the 5 because this is such a nice computer now. It's really fast. So Raspberry 5, check out the link if you want to buy this kind of thing. Home printed, you know, self-printed case, just so that it has a little case. And then a decent SD card. I'm just using the Amazon Basics. But I do make sure that it's this A2 card that's meant for application, so it's a little bit faster. So I'm going to put this in there and start the process of installing Home Assistant on the Raspberry Pi. Again, there are many ways to do this, but that's just the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to install it on this Raspberry Pi. Okay, so here's what I did to install Meshtastic. I went to this Raspberry Pi website, you know, the Home Assistant website, sorry, and I downloaded this image, and I'll put a link to that in the description again. I downloaded this file, which is that HAOS image file, and then you can use any etcher. I just used Balena etcher, and I wrote it onto the SD card. Then I inserted the SD card, and I connected it up with a keyboard and a mouse, and a HDMI cable so that I can look at it. And so it booted up. Great. This took 2 or 3 minutes. It booted up. Everything looked fine. And then after that, I connected it to Wi-Fi. Now, I like connecting my stuff to Wi-Fi. If you connected it to a LAN cable, like they say, you can skip this section. But I connected it to Wi-Fi because I didn't like that it's Wi-Fi, that it's on my LAN. I wanted it on Wi-Fi. So that command, you can see it there. I'll also put it in the description. But after that, I started it up and it started running for a while. Everything looked good. Home Assistant, it's on Wi-Fi now. I haven't plugged the LAN cable in. Again, if you have plugged in a LAN cable, you can skip this section. But I plugged it in, but then it came up with this error. So I had to plug in a LAN cable at least once to get through this process. Yay, finally it came back with that. So it's currently still on my LAN and Wi-Fi. But let's create my smart home. So first thing here is just creating basic details. What's my name, username and password. So I'm just going to say Vivian Van Zyl. My username is Vivian and my password is, and obviously I've done this before, so I'm just going to use an existing password. No, I will have to type a new password. So I will type a password and create account. Boom. And save it. Okay. Where am I? 33, let's just say St. Petersburg, Florida. Can I do that? St. Petersburg, Florida. There we go. Next. Okay, what am I? Help us, whatever. There's some of the stuff it found on my network. It's already found my printer, that kind of thing. Great. And it's added it here. So there we go. That's the basics then of installing. It's just telling me that it found some devices. There we can see is my printer that it found on the network, various other things, shopping lists and radios and Bluetooth stuff, and pretty cool. But so the first thing I want to do now is, obviously I want to have access to this thing because I want to make Meshtastic work on it. I need to, the first thing I want to do is install a way for me to connect to this device, because I need to edit some YAML files. Now that becomes a problem if this thing lives somewhere on my network and you can't edit them through this UI. So I have to install something, add-ons, and the first thing I want to install is see if I can find anything SSH related. So there it is, Advanced Web Terminal SSH. Okay, so they have this little store where you can install these applications. So first thing I'm going to install is this Advanced SSH and Web Terminal. So I will hit install on this one, and I know this takes a little bit of time, so I'll be back in a second. But what I'm doing here is I'm installing a SSH client or a server on the Home Assistant. Oh, it's actually done already. So now it's start at boot. If it dies, restart it, show it in the sidebar, and we'll leave it in protected mode. And I'm going to hit start on that SSH server. and you'll see that a little thing appears on the left here that goes terminal. So if I hit that terminal, I get an immediate error that says 502 bad gateway. So I had to work through this one for a while. And what it is I go back to settings, I go into the add-ons, I go to this guy, I go to configuration, and I have to enter a password here. So I'm just going to let my Chihuahua walk over the keyboard quickly. Come, walk over. Okay, there. Good, thanks. Good dog. Okay, so I have a password now, a strong password. Okay, so and that's under the configuration of this client. So I'm going to hit save somewhere along the line here. And I'm going to say, well, save it and restart it. So now if I go to terminal, boom, I'm in. There is my terminal. So we can see I can hit it there. So if I do a ls over here, there we go. That's the first thing I need to install is this SSH client. So I'm now installed. I can now actually, I can use Nano or VI or whatever I want to use to edit files. So the second thing I want to install is, if I go to settings, I need to install MQTT. And MQTT, add from the store, sorry, MQTT, and I want to install this Mosquitto broker. So I want to install a MQTT broker. So let me go ahead and do that. So I'm installing Mosquitto on this home assistant of mine. We can see again, start at boot, use the watchdog to make sure it doesn't die. There's the documentation, there's the configuration. We can see it runs on 1833. So great, let me start that guy. So now I have a terminal and I have a Mosquitto running on my home assistant on the little Raspberry Pi. Okay, now maybe it's a good time to install something like MQTT Explorer, which is just a little piece of software that you can install, and they have it again for various operating systems. I install that little piece of software, and I can set up, we can say there's updates already, but I'm doing homeassistant.local 1833 MQTT. I'm going to hit connect, and it says I'm not authorized. So I still cannot connect. There's no username and password for me here. I can try the original Vivian, which was the username that I set up, and the original password. Let's see if I can connect. Nope. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Home Assistant. I'm going to go into settings, and I'm going to go to people, and I'm going to add a person here, and I'm just going to call it MQTT user _user. Okay, and I say allow login, and I'm just going to choose a password here. Just choose a password. I'm going to say create. I'm going to say create. So now I have a user, MQTT user, and there's me. But okay, so let's go back to the little application in here, and I'm going to say MQTT _user, and I'm going to say the password is whatever I chose. Let's see if that works. Boom. I'm now connected to the MQTT server that's running, Mosquitto, that's running inside of my Home Assistant. And here we can see all the messages that's on the MQTT at the moment. So that's just a nice debug tool. You don't have to do this part, but it's nice to have this so you can see the actual messages that goes around. Okay, that was the next step. So now comes the part where we have to edit the files. And that is adding our Meshtastic nodes to this MQTT server using MQTT on the Meshtastic Meshtastic nodes. So I have to designate one a node to be my MQTT gateway on my network, and I chose my Linux server to do that. So that guy is connected my Linux hat Meshtastic, but I think you can connect Heltex. They all support Wi-Fi. If they support network, you can connect them to the network and designate that one as your MQTT server. So as your MQTT gateway. So that would look something in the line of. So let me pull this guy up here, and hopefully you can see some of this at least. So here's my, I have just a mobile app connected. I just have a mobile app connected to my Linux hat. And I'm going to go into radio configuration. And I'm going to go to, of course, this one's on the network. So that you have to set up the network over here. If you chose, you would have to put your SID and your your password and connect this specific Meshtastic node to the network. And once you've done that, you can go into MQTT, and here I filled in Home Assistant and the username. This is the second time I'm installing it, so I made it MQTT user, and let me type in the password quickly. Right, user and password, Home Assistant, MQTT user, username, password, and I am going to send that off to my node. Okay. So what that really means is my MQTT server for my Meshtastic node is now Home Assistant. This is the user that I created that can log in and post things. And I have JSON enabled, I've disabled encryption, and I don't have this proxy client enabled. But that's what I have on the Meshtastic side of things. So that is my Linux hat. Okay, the next step now is to start adding the configuration. So if you go to the terminal and you're going to go cd config, and if we look in there, there is a configuration.yaml file. So nano configuration.yaml. There's that file. So now, the first thing we got to do is include MQTT on this Home Assistant server. So there's a Meshtastic page that shows you, and I'll put the URL there. So what we want to do is put this MQTT include inside this configuration file. So I'm going to include that there, and I'm going to save it. Yes, and that's now done. So it says discovered new devices, now that I've included MQTT. But what you should do is go to developer, then always in Home Assistant, check your configuration. It says, oh, there's a problem. It says invalid configuration. It calls for a file called MQTT.yaml, and that file's not there. Okay, so back in the terminal, I'm going to now create this file, MQTT.yaml file, and inside there I'm going to put a whole bunch of stuff. So, and I'll try and explain this quickly. It goes sensor, and then it goes into, you see I have a hat node, that's one of my nodes. I have a solar node, that's my second node, and I have a home node. So how this basically goes is you have to give each one of these nodes and the sensor that you want to add to a Home Assistant, got to give it a name and a unique ID, and then you would have seen I published to MSH/US as my MQTT setup on my Meshtastic node, and then it's got this number in there, and this I would call the reporting node, or the Meshtastic node that is responsible for reporting. So that number, you know, if you look at your node, if you your nodes, and I'll just use a mesh sense over here to look at it, and I will go look at my Meshtastic node, like this one, this a Linux one, and we can see that that is the number, the user ID. So inside of this configuration, that is the user ID of a node that will be reporting to, and that's the topic it will report to. MSH2 JSON long fast, and you know, because that's a node reporting. And then you know, so then inside of a script, which I'll make available on the website, it's also on the Meshtastic site, but is this number. So it says if the from equals that number, and if I go look in here again in Meshtastic, and if I look at my actual node, so let's look at that node again, we'll see that's 1744, and we'll see that that equals 1744. So you can see I'm looking battery voltage. I have a reporting node, which is my one, and I'll put a graphic on the screen that displays it, but that's my Linux hat that's reporting, that's been configured to send stuff to MQTT. And then I say if the you know, the value of the from is this node, which is that ID, then do something. So so that's really how it goes. So you'll see that everything in this section under hat node talks about the reporting node, or the ones that's reporting to MQTT stays the same. But then I just say, well, if it's this node, then report to this entry, you know, node hat battery percentage. So there's channel util, there's air util, you can do messages, I'll talk about that a little bit later. But here's my solar node. We can see that it's still the same reporting node, meaning my Linux hat node is reporting, but the ID is now different, because I'm saying, well, look for this ID, the from this ID, and report it to this entry. So how that looks is, again, if I go to, that's my solar node. If I look at my solar node's information, I can see this node number here. So that's what goes into a script. It basically says reporting node, look for, if it's this specific node on my Meshtastic network, then report it to node solar battery percentage. So there's the file. You can look at that file on the site, but what it basically then says, I will write this away to MQTT.yaml. So now I have those two files. If I go now to developer options and I check configuration, you see it's green. Everything's good. And if this is the first time you do it, you might have to restart Home Assistant. So I'm going to restart that now, and let's see when it comes back. So let's go and see if that's back. It says, and you can immediately see, oh, it's discovered all these things, but they're all saying unknown at the moment. Okay, unknown, 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 unknown. It doesn't have a value, but these are all the discovered MQTT sensors that it now reports. So if I go back into developer tools, if I ever wanted to change something, so I can nano that file or VI it, I can make a change over here, and from now on I go to developer tools and I just have to hit this manually configured MQTT entities. I reload that, boom, but it's always good to first check that you didn't screw something up and then do the manual reload and you're good. Everything is now set up. Now we got to get my MQTT messages to be reported. So that's the next step. So if your Meshtastic node is connected properly to the MQTT server, has the right username and password, it will start sending data, and you can actually start seeing data arriving inside of a dashboard over here. So if I look at MQTT Explorer, and this is nice about this, we can see, remember I made that SSH US was the topic, and we can see that there's a encrypted message that comes through, but there's also, because I said report in JSON also, here's some of the messages that's actually coming through now from Meshtastic. So it's reporting to SSH US 2, and those are the messages. So this specific message dealt with temperatures, and it was this one specific node that was reporting there, and you can then see that's my hat node, that's my Linux hat, that's showing, that's my utilization, my battery, my channel, that kind of thing. So as soon as we can also see that my home node has also sent, it's got OK to MQTT flag turned on, and we can see that it also reported to the Meshtastic node over here, the Linux hat node, and that it sent some information, and then the hat node actually put that message out onto the network, and we can see the details over here. So now all that remains is you can create a dashboard, and you can start tracking these things, and like I showed in the beginning, you can start mapping these things and drawing graphs with them and doing whatever. There is also the possibility to send and receive messages. I'll do that in a follow-up video, but that was the basic thing. I'll put the graph up again, and hopefully that all makes sense. So if you got any questions, let me know. Links are in the description at the bottom for the Pi, Raspberry Pi, that kind of thing. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I know this is a bit of a longer video, but we'll talk again next time.